He had ended up using those, I guess, as a bargaining chip to get a date with her. And she saw right through that and completely clowned him at the fucking restaurant. And was just like, yeah, what exactly were you expecting from this? Like, you was going to buy me some shoes? And
that was an excellent
have
question,
sex
actually.
for me? Like, I'm like, yeah, bro. Is that what you thought?
And then the way in which he acquired the information.
Correct.
I mean, super creepy.
Yeah, he Instagram.
And I don't use that word lightly because to me, like, when people talk about, use the word creep, it's like, your shit's on the internet, right? Fool. Like, what you talking about? Right. Anybody can come to your page at any given moment. The word creep, when it comes to the internet, is stupid. Like, that shit is literally, millions of people can see your shit.
Right.
But in this particular instance, that shit was creepy because he took action.
He was.
Yes, he took action.
Right. That's really where the creepy would come. He showed up to where he found out she was.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Cinecism. I'm Eric.
It's your boy Dante, man, and today we're going to be doing a review on the Hulu Original Series WOKE.
And WOKE is about a lot of the topics you might imagine it will be.
The show stars Lamorne Morris.
Yeah, he plays Keith Knight. Actually a real person, but his name ain't spelled that way. He's an actual cartoonist named Keith Knight. His character is based on like a real dude.
The events that happen in this show?
I don't know about the events,
well,
but
I'm talking, well, not supernatural shit, but
well, of course not. No,
I'm talking more the shit with the.
What? That's what I don't know.
Okay,
I don't know if his experiences are mirrored in his show or not. Keith Knight is a cartoonist who is right on the brink of getting his little comic strip, his newspaper comic strip published and turned into an actual cartoon, right?
Yeah.
Certain events unfold that caused that to not happen. Yeah. The major turning point was when he was, it was a case of mistaken identity by the police officers. He was tackled and harassed by a group of police officers who were looking for a suspect that fit the same description as him. After these events unfold, he starts hallucinating and seeing inanimate objects turn into like imaginary characters.
He's completely traumatized, for lack of a better word. And I think that the inanimate objects coming to life to him is kind of like a coping mechanism for him to start to deal with things, because prior to this, he was also the type of person, of course he's a black man, but he was also the type of black man who I think had a certain naivete with regards to race and things in this country. So that's why the show is called WOKE. It seems like after that moment, his eyes were open to a certain aspect of society that he wasn't quite privy to, or at least didn't know the extent of prior to the event happening to him.
We already pretty much touched on Keith. Very naive, kind of blind to some of the social injustices and issues that people, not even just black people, because this show touches on a lot of different cultural aspects aside from like race. I don't know if he was blind to it or he just kind of ignored it because it didn't directly affect him. He prides himself on keeping things light in his work. He doesn't really want to touch on any kind of political, racial issues. He kind of just wants to make people laugh.
He said something really interesting to his friend. He has a friend in the show who we'll touch on in a bit, who is a little bit more of a, I don't want to say a stereotypical black guy, but
he is.
Definitely fits that description. He said something really interesting to him, man, after this whole police incident. He was like, yeah, man, I never thought, to be honest, that something like this would happen to me. And then he was like, well, who'd you think it would happen to? And he was like, man, you know, and that's kind of the whole point. You're not judged by your character, you're judged by the color of your skin. And that could be applicable to anybody. Somebody that fits the description of a thuggish black person or somebody that fits the description of a cartoonist. Like, they don't really care. So I think afterwards he starts to really realize that if something like this can happen to me and I'm what they would call a good black person, then, you know, this is obviously a much bigger problem than I thought it was.
And then you have his best friend, Clovis.
Clovis. Yeah.
Never heard that name before. Cletus. Clovis, like we mentioned before, he's kind of stereotypical, but throughout the season, he kind of has moments of like of clarity, I feel. They few and far between, but when he does say something impactful, I feel like it's pretty meaningful. But he's, I guess, more of a wannabe womanizer than he actually is. The way he sees himself is not the way that women see him or view him. He kind of like has some chauvinistic ways. I mean, he is blunt. I mean, I guess that could be a positive attribute to some people, but not in the way that he presents it.
Right. He kind of got delusions of grandeur to a certain degree. He clearly has like self-esteem, self-confidence issues, because the way he's getting a lot of these women is by lying to him, telling them that he's celebrities or famous athletes and shit like that, and of course he's not. But I like him, man. He's funny. At least with his friend, like, he don't seem to be pulling no punches. He definitely keeps it real with him. Especially with these incidents involving race, but it also seems like sometimes he got his own selfish agenda. Like, his friend is clearly traumatized and going through stuff, and I feel like he was trying to capitalize sometimes off his pain. He was charming enough that you didn't hate him. Like, he was funny.
Yeah, kind of.
He definitely had moments where it was like, all right.
Other dude was more of a like friend to him.
I preferred him.
Let's talk about him. What's his name?
Gunther.
He's Keith's and Clovis's other roommate, and he's the more of the like eclectic type. He's personable, but he's also very empathetic, I feel, when it comes to the plights of different people, not even just black people, but other people who are sometimes victim of certain situations. At first, when we introduced him, he seems like more of like the pothead, like, you know, hippie type, but we also get to see more layers to him too as the season goes on, I feel. I
still felt like he was the hippie type though.
He was, but he wasn't one-dimensional like we've seen in other media before.
He's in a position where he kind of has to be aware of a lot of the social injustices and things like that, because he has two black roommates, and one of them is like black as fuck, you know what I'm saying? So they bumped heads on certain issues, which I thought was kind of interesting. He seemed to be kind of like the heart of the group, you know what I'm saying? He's more the sensitive guy, more the voice of reason, when Clovis is out here giving poor advice, which seems to be often.
Then you got, what's the girlfriend's name, man?
This nigga ain't watching.
Adrian. God, he meets Adrian in weird circumstances.
Oh, man. My God.
Yeah. Anyway, Adrian is Keith's girlfriend he meets early on in the season. I feel like she's very open-minded too when it comes to a lot of things. They can relate on a certain level because they're both artists in their own right.
I like her. She's quirky. She's white, and she's from New Zealand. So it's like a cultural barrier on two accounts. She's kind of in a place where I think she's still trying to find herself, at least more so as an artist. She finds Keith, which is interesting because they're both kind of finding their artistic voice around the same time. In terms of who she is a little bit more in a stable place than Keith. Keith is like on a different type of trajectory because his whole life has been blown up ever since that event happened. So
yeah, he's kind of having some realizations about himself. So they meet kind of at like a good time for him, because otherwise I don't know if they would have connected on that level had he met her, if that situation didn't happen to him.
Yeah, absolutely not. He was a completely different person.
That was an interesting pairing to me, because I just would have never imagined them being in a relationship on screen. I mean, it worked though. It was cool.
The characters worked.
Like they played on each other well.
I was about to say, I think they just related to each other on a certain level. Like, I definitely liked her a lot better for him than the original girl they had him paired with. It just seemed like they didn't have hardly no chemistry.
So then you have Ayanna. What was the situation they met?
Just in like randomly in a store or something, and then he mentioned that he was the cartoonist.
Oh yeah, and that's when he was like, he wanted to keep it light, like, because she interpreted his work as like more socially conscious, right? Yes. But he was like, I'm not on that shit. Basically, they form a bond too, because they start working with each other, and the more socially conscious he becomes, the closer I feel they get. She kind of helps him go down the right path, just make more morally conscious decisions.
Yeah, he be trying to chicken out on a lot of shit. It's like he'll want to do something brave, and then he'll try to backpedal.
Yeah, he did that a lot.
Yeah, and she was
be calling him out on it.
Yeah, exactly. She wouldn't let him do it. It was like, look, no, you said you would do this, so you're gonna do it.
Key moments.
Yes,
let's talk about key moments.
Let's do it.
So this was more of like a takeaway for me. It was like a moment in here when they were like on a bus, and everybody was raving about this goddamn bear, this koala bear.
Yeah.
It brought awareness to like a common issue that I've seen just with people in general, especially in recent years, how we put so much more care and consideration into like animals. Not to say we can't care about animals, but it's like over like human life. Yeah. Like, for instance, they had a homeless and clearly a mentally unstable man on a bus that was asking for money. They completely disregarded him. He was in
hospital gown.
Yeah, like a hospital gown that was like soiled. Everybody just disregarded him, but they put so much care and consideration into an animal who they didn't even, it wasn't nobody's pet. They didn't personally know this animal. It's frustrating because it's like you have a living, breathing human right here in front of you that you couldn't care less about.
I felt like it was trying to draw a direct correlation to the Harambe story that happened. I'm sure that was the inspiration behind it. Keith is kind of like, he's also not doing well on the bus. That's another thing. He's clearly going through some type of emotional episode on the bus, and I feel like people are ignoring that too. The more and more things seem to get bad on his front, the more and more things get bad on the animals front, almost simultaneously. And you can see that the care for the koala bear is completely, like, he's completely galvanized all their attention and their sympathy. They was like cash apping him money. That shit was funny. He had like a GoFundMe for, he was like, yo, the GoFundMe's up to 12K. He was like, for what? He was like, what is he?
Like, who set that up?
Koala need a GoFundMe for? You know, he can't buy nothing. Like, what the fuck? They really don't mention what happened to him as far as the police are concerned. It's like sprinkled in there, and you kind of know that his reactions to a lot of the things that's happening to him currently are due to that incident, but they don't verbalize it. They don't really talk about it. It don't come up much after. That was really the turning point, I think, where he kind of just realized like maybe this shit is really affecting him beyond, because he snapped on everybody because of that damn bear. And I felt him, man. The meeting that he had at the end with the police officer, I thought was real significant. The police officer that tackled him, that police officer is suing him for defamation of character. Like, Keith has begun as a therapist. That
was wild. I was like,
but not far-fetched. And that's the even wilder part. I was like, yeah, I could probably see some shit like that, and it's fucked up. Basically, Keith started to go to therapy after that whole incident with the koala bear. As a therapeutic release, he's starting a cartoon about the incidents that happened to him, and those cartoons are being published. The police officer, as a compromise, wants to have a meeting with Keith. But it's a big PR stunt, you know what I'm saying? It's just to make the police look good. I thought it was going to go a different way. I actually thought they were going to come to some common ground and be able to really hash it out.
I would have hoped more for that.
The problem is police, over-policing and brutality against the citizens, you know, especially when they black and brown people. That's the issue. Not y'all looking bad. If the incident wouldn't have occurred, you would have never looked bad. So, you know, tackle that at its core. You know, have a meeting that's geared more towards that if you want to incorporate Keith. Have a dialogue at least. You know, let the police officer tell his side of the story. Let Keith tell his side. And maybe they kind of come to a common ground that way.
I would have liked to see a little bit more of a gray area, a little bit more humanity or humane interaction between the officer and him. I'm not one of them people that like, oh, police officers bad. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, this could have been like a prime opportunity for people or for the show to shed light on two different perspectives. Mm-hmm. And for the person that victimized somebody to apologize. It was already wild that, you know, you could tell it was a bunch of bullshit. But then when they made old boy apologize too, I was like, the fuck? Like, come on, man. Well, I know that, but I'm saying when they tried to make him apologize, like, now they're going too far.
Yeah,
like,
I agree. I also wasn't mad at this approach either, because I was just like, you know, yeah, that could potentially happen too, you know, because honestly, the guy that would sue you over tackling you, that does seem on brand for him. I'm gonna be real honest with you. That to me wasn't that far-fetched either, just not towards police in general, but that gentleman's character, that seemed to be more in line with something that he probably would do. I really enjoyed the celebrity voices on here. They used a lot of people that I haven't seen Eddie Griffin in quite some time.
Eddie Griffin was in here?
Eddie Griffin voiced
Who was he?
One of the malt liquors.
Makes sense. Definitely recognize
Cree Summer. Like, if you recognize her voice, not
she a legend. Like, Keith David too. Like, he has a very distinct voice.
Yeah, Cedric the Entertainer.
I knew who he was. JB Smoove. The only one I did not notice was Eddie Griffin. I'm sure if I listen for it now, I would pick up on it, but I definitely didn't notice.
It's not a real heavy show, I will say that. Even with the heavier content, those inanimate objects interacting with him definitely helped. So yeah, it was good that they got some real dope people to voice them. Who was your favorite?
I guess it was the malt liquors, honestly. Yeah. I think they made me laugh the most out of everybody. Oh, wait, the trash can. The trash can was funny too.
He was funny.
You know, I also noticed how his mental conditions seemed to get worse when he didn't have the ability to talk to the inanimate objects anymore.
Oh yeah.
His mental health immediately started to decline.
He wasn't really accepting of them, which of course, because he was probably felt like he was going crazy. But I think he had got used to them, and I think it also was a representation of kind of his new consciousness in a way, because the inanimate objects that were talking to him for the most part was really on some like pro-black.
It was ignorant though.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. When they left, it was kind of like he had lost that new part of himself that he had discovered. I thought that was interesting. The whole aspect of making those inanimate objects kind of symbolize his trauma, I thought was a real unique approach to something like this. Even just the addressing of the traumatic after effects of something like this, because you know, more often than not, you kind of see the events happen, but you don't really get to see the aftermath to how this affects somebody's day-to-day life. This really impacted negatively his life in a lot of ways, like his relationships with his friends, his romantic relationships, his work, you know, and a lot of the times, man, this shit happens like these, even in just watching the situations on the news and some of these verdicts, that shit impacts you, man. Like, you know, it affects you and you got to go about your life. You got to kind of just live your life. And, you know, most of us don't deal with it.
I had mixed feelings about it.
Okay,
I didn't dislike the show.
Okay.
I appreciated a lot of things about the show. I felt like the approach was a little heavy-handed. I just thought about how somebody like Dave Chappelle, his approach to satire. I just wish the show could have been a little bit more funny. It was lighthearted, but the way that they addressed some of the topics I felt was heavy. I just wish it was a little more funny and clever and witty in the format in which they addressed certain situations. Aside from that, it was a little better than I expected. Having said all that, I'm going to give Hulu's Woke a 6.5 out of 10 for me.
I enjoyed the show. I also am a big fan of Lamar Morris, so that already got me in the gate. I enjoyed what I felt like the show was trying to be. It doesn't feel like it's fully developed yet, though. It definitely still feels like a show that's growing. Overall, for me, man, I think I'm going to give this show a 7. I like where it's going. It's not quite there yet, but it's still a really enjoyable show.
Hope y'all enjoyed our review for Hulu's Woke. Like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And also, if you would like for us to review anything as far as movies, series, such as this one, or even movie trailers for any upcoming movies, don't forget to drop a comment below. Also, any throwback movie suggestions you might have, you can also drop a comment for.
Bring it. If you guys have seen Hulu's Woke, please let us know what you thought. I haven't heard much about this show in terms of the review, so I'd be really interested to see what you guys think if you've seen it. We appreciate y'all, man.
Yeah, thank y'all.
Peace.
Peace.